Imagine walking into a building that contains every book ever written in the ancient world, every philosophy, every science, every story. Now imagine it all burning to ash in a single catastrophic event, setting human knowledge back 1,000 years. This is the story we've been told about the Library of Alexandria, and almost every word of it is wrong. What really happened to the ancient world's most famous library is far stranger, more complicated, and in some ways more tragic than the myth. The truth involves multiple destructions, political intrigue, religious conflict, and a legend that refuses to die even 2,300 years later. By the end of this video, you'll understand why almost everything you think you know about the Library of Alexandria is based on romanticized fiction rather than historical fact. And you'll discover what was truly lost when this remarkable institution finally disappeared. Let's separate the myths from reality. To understand what was lost, we first need to understand what the Library of Alexandria actually was. The story begins in 331 BCE when Alexander the Great founded the city of Alexandria in Egypt. After Alexander's death, his general Ptolemy took control of Egypt and established the Ptolemaic dynasty. Ptolemy I wasn't just a military commander, he was a man who understood that knowledge was power. Around 295 BCE, either Ptolemy I or his son Ptolemy II established the Great Library and Museum of Alexandria. And here's our first myth to bust. It wasn't primarily a public library in the modern sense. The museum was essentially the world's first major research institution, a place where scholars could live, study, and work, all funded by the Egyptian royal treasury. Think of it less like your local library and more like a combination of Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study and the Library of Congress, all wrapped into one ancient complex. The library's mission was audacious, to collect all the knowledge of the known world. Ptolemaic agents reportedly confiscated books from ships docking in Alexandria's harbor, copied them, and returned the copies to the owners while keeping the originals. This wasn't just scholarship, it was systematic cultural appropriation in the name of knowledge. The great mathematician Euclid worked there, Archimedes studied there, Eratosthenes calculated the Earth's circumference there with remarkable accuracy, centuries before Columbus. The physician Herophilos performed some of the first systematic human dissections, laying the groundwork for modern anatomy. At its height, estimates suggest the library held between 40,000 and 400,000 scrolls. That massive range tells you something important. We don't actually know. And unlike modern books, ancient scrolls were fragile, bulky, and didn't last long without constant copying and maintenance. The Library of Alexandria wasn't a static repository of eternal knowledge. It was a living, breathing institution that required constant care, funding, and political stability to survive. And that's where the problems began. Our first potential destruction brings us to one of history's most famous figures, Julius Caesar. In 48 BCE, Caesar arrived in Alexandria pursuing his rival Pompey during Rome's civil war. He quickly became entangled in Egypt's own political mess, taking Cleopatra's side in her power struggle against her brother Ptolemy XIII. When Egyptian forces besieged Caesar in the royal quarter of Alexandria, he made a fateful military decision. He set fire to the Egyptian fleet in the harbor to prevent it from being used against him. Here's what ancient sources tell us. The fire spread from the ships to nearby warehouses that contained books intended for the library. The Roman writer Seneca, writing about a century later, claimed that 40,000 books burned in this incident. But here's the crucial question. Did the library itself burn? The answer appears to be no. The main library building was likely not damaged in this fire. What probably burned were warehouses containing either duplicates or books waiting to be processed and added to the collection. Still a significant loss, but not the catastrophic destruction of the entire library that popular myths suggest. We know this because ancient scholars continued to reference the Library of Alexandria for centuries after Caesar's time. The geographer Strabo visited and described it around 20 BCE. The Roman Emperor Claudius added a new wing to it in the 1st century CE. Caesar's fire was a tragedy, certainly. It damaged part of Alexandria's scholarly infrastructure, But it wasn't the apocalyptic end of the library. That wouldn't come for centuries, and when it did, it wouldn't happen all at once. The real story of the library's destruction isn't dramatic, it's depressing. After Caesar's fire, the library continued operating, but the world around it was changing. Roman control of Egypt meant the Ptolemaic dynasty's generous funding dried up. Scholars still worked there, but the institution's golden age was behind it. In 215 CE, the Roman Emperor Caracalla ordered a massacre in Alexandria after the city mocked him. Ancient sources suggest he also shut down the scholarly community, expelled foreign scholars, and reduced funding for intellectual pursuits. The museum and library suffered enormously, though they apparently survived in diminished form. By the late 3rd or early 4th century, Alexandria experienced a series of catastrophes. In 272 CE, Emperor Aurelian's forces damaged much of the city, including the district where the library stood, while suppressing a rebellion. Archaeological evidence suggests significant destruction in this period. Here's what many people don't realize. There were actually 2 major libraries in ancient Alexandria, the Great Library at the museum and a smaller daughter library at the Serapeum Temple. By the late 3rd or early 4th century, the original library at the museum had likely ceased to function, its collections scattered, destroyed, or simply deteriorated from neglect. But the Serapeum Library continued. And this is where we encounter another myth, that early Christians deliberately destroyed the library in an act of anti-intellectual religious fanaticism. In 391 CE, the Christian Roman Emperor Theodosius ordered the destruction of pagan temples throughout the empire. The Serapeum was attacked and destroyed by a Christian mob led by the Patriarch Theophilus. Ancient sources describe the destruction of the temple in vivid detail. But here's the problem. Not a single contemporary source mentions a library being destroyed in this incident. The library that once existed at the Serapeum had apparently already disappeared, probably decades earlier during the civil wars and political chaos of the 3rd century. The myth that Christians burned the Library of Alexandria is apparently a later invention, popularized during the Enlightenment as an example of religious obscurantism. It fits our modern narratives about science versus religion, but it doesn't fit the historical evidence. The truth is far less dramatic. The Library of Alexandria died not in flames, but from slow strangulation. Reduced funding, political instability, war damage, and simple neglect killed it gradually over several centuries. But wait, there's one more destruction story we need to address. A medieval tale claims that when Arab forces conquered Alexandria in 641 CE, the Caliph Umar ordered all the books in the library burned, supposedly saying, if these books agree with the Quran, they are unnecessary. If they disagree, they are heretical. Either way, they should be destroyed. According to this story, the scrolls were used to fuel the city's bathhouses for 6 months. It's a compelling narrative. It's also almost certainly fiction. This story first appears in writing more than 500 years after the supposed event, in the work of a Christian bishop writing in a context of Muslim-Christian conflict. No contemporary Arab sources mention it. No contemporary Christian sources mention it. No archaeological evidence supports it. Most tellingly, by 641 CE, there was no library left to burn. The Great Library had gone for centuries. The Serapeum Library had disappeared 250 years earlier. So why does this myth persist? Because it serves a narrative purpose, casting one side as destroyers of knowledge and the other as victims. Throughout history, this story has been weaponized by different groups to vilify their enemies. The real history is more complicated and less convenient for anyone's propaganda. Now let's address the biggest myth of all, that the library's destruction set civilization back 1,000 years. This is the Dark Ages narrative, and it's mostly nonsense. First, knowledge in the ancient world wasn't centralized in Alexandria. There were major libraries in Pergamum, Athens, Rome, and Constantinople. Many important texts existed in multiple copies across the Mediterranean world. Second, the so-called Dark Ages weren't actually dark. Byzantine scholars preserved enormous amounts of classical knowledge. Islamic scholars in Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba translated and built upon Greek and Roman texts. Medieval European monasteries copied and preserved countless manuscripts. That said, we did lose things, significant things. We lost most of Greek drama. Of the roughly 1,000 plays written by the great tragedians, we have only 32 complete works. In some cases, we know about the existence of plays only because they were mentioned in some other text. We lost most of the pre-Socratic philosophers. We lost detailed accounts of ancient technologies and engineering techniques. We lost scientific treatises that wouldn't be rediscovered until the Renaissance or later. But here's the crucial point. Most of this wasn't lost in a single catastrophic fire at Alexandria. It was lost gradually across centuries through a combination of factors. Papyrus scrolls naturally deteriorated and needed constant copying to survive. Books on topics that seemed unimportant to later generations simply weren't copied and were allowed to crumble away. Political upheavals and wars destroyed